Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Force Strategy Gaming. Today we'll be taking a look at all Demon Hunter abilities currently available in the Diablo 3 beta. Hungering Arrow costs 15 Hatred. With it you fire a magically imbued arrow that seeks out targets for 140% weapon damage and also has a 50% chance to pierce through targets. With a 50% chance to pierce, Hungering Arrow does become an effective ability to use in large groups of enemies. It is not the strongest hitting ability for single targets, and it's suggested that you use other skills instead. Hungering Arrow also appears to have some sort of seeking properties under certain situations. Entangling Shot costs 15 Hatred. With it you release a sticky adhesive that deals 130% weapon damage and entangles up to 2 enemies, slowing their movement by 50% for 2 seconds. Entangling Shot is the Demon Hunter's range snare, and hitting multiple enemies also makes it an effective ability for small groups of enemies.
How long shall the people suffer in the shadow of what happened here?
Evasive Fire costs 5 Hatred to shoot and an additional 4 Discipline if you backflip. You shoot for 135% weapon damage. If an enemy is in close range, you will also backflip 15 yards away. Evasive Fire becomes a strong ability to use if you have dangerous enemies within range and you want to try to get a distance. It is not that effective in large groups of enemies or against single targets, but specifically should be used to push yourself away from your opponents. Fan of Knives costs 10 Hatred. With it you throw knives out in a spiral around you, dealing 5 to 7 physical damage to all enemies within 10 yards of you. Your knives will also slow the movement of enemies by 35% for 4 seconds. Fan of Knives is not a primary damage dealing ability, but is specifically used for the snare effect when you're surrounded by multiple enemies. While this can be used against single targets, it will most certainly be used in large groups of enemies that you're trying to keep snared. Bola Shot costs 20 Hatred. With it you shoot out an explosive bola that wraps itself around its target. After 1 second, the bola explodes, dealing 120% weapon damage as fire to the target and an additional 90% weapon damage as fire to all other targets within 7 yards. With the secondary explosion attributed to Bola Shot, this is an excellent ability to use in large groups of enemies that are tightly packed together. You must make sure that your enemies are within close proximity of each other, however, because if they are not close enough, that additional damage will not hit enemies nearby your target. Grenades cost 30 Hatred, allowing you to throw out 3 grenades that explode for 14 to 24 damage. This is a strong ability for large groups of enemies, especially if you can lay down multiple attacks of grenades. You must also keep in mind that after landing, the grenades do bounce a certain distance to make sure to not overshoot your enemies. Chakram costs 25 hatred and fires a swirling chakram that deals 20 to 28 physical damage to enemies along its path. This is a very effective ability for tightly packed enemies and also has some sort of a random element to it as the chakram spirals as it continues along its path. One of the greatest things about this skill is that it continues moving even after it has hit multiple targets. Impale is currently the Demon Hunter's strongest hitting ability. Costing 20 hatred, it fires a massive shot to impale a target for 220% weapon damage. Something very interesting to note about Impale as well is that it does not have a projectile animation. Upon firing, you instantaneously hit the target. This is a great ability for long-range, single-target sniping. Caltrops cost 8 discipline. With it, you lay down Caltrops on the ground that activate when an enemy approaches. Once sprung, the Caltrops slow the movement of enemies within 12 yards by 50%. This trap lasts 12 seconds. Even after you have laid down the trap, as long as it's still within that 12-second activation time, any enemies that cross through it will be snared. This is a great ability to snare multiple targets and especially in large groups. Vault is the Demon Hunter's mobility spell. Costing 10 discipline, you tumble acrobatically 35 yards in a direction. This is great for both closing gaps and pushing away from dangerous enemies. Marked for Death can effectively be considered the Demon Hunter's debuff. Costing 6 discipline, you mark an enemy. That marked enemy takes 20% additional damage for the next 30 seconds. That additional damage can come from any source, and this is great for group play, being able to mark a specific high priority target and have your entire group target fire it down. Smokescreen, costing 15 discipline, allows you to vanish behind a wall of smoke, becoming momentarily invisible for 2.0 seconds. This allows the Demon Hunter to escape otherwise dangerous situations or try to set herself up for a strong attack. Alright everyone, those are all the abilities currently available to the Demon Hunter in the beta. Now do keep in mind that these are subject to change and may very well change throughout the course of the beta or upon release. Alright guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe. Thanks again guys, keep watching and keep owning.